What's up guys, before the video starts, normally I put this stuff at the end of the video. I just want to take this opportunity to do a little self-promotion if you're into it. I do have a Patreon. It helps kind of support this channel, keep me doing what I'm doing, so if you like what I do on this channel, helps a lot. Thank you very much guys. Also, if you want to send me something to review, leave it in the comment section down below, and yeah. And now to the rest of the video. What's up, badasses? How you doing? This is a review of the HE560 by Hifiman. This is a gorgeous planar magnetic headphone. It has really substantially light build, which is kind of surprising. I thought it was going to be quite a bit heavier than it actually is. I was comparing it to what I imagined to be the same approximate weight as like the M1060, and it's not anything like that. It's almost half the weight. It's kind of crazy. You have this beautiful, they call it like ebony wood, and it's magnificent looking. I'm not sure how long it will last in terms of build quality, if there's going to be any cracks or anything. Speaking of build quality, one of the main particular issues with this headphone is this armband right here. A lot of complaints from people saying that it breaks. Actually, the generous fellow who let me borrow his headphone for this review, actually his broke on him for this particular pair, and here's a picture of that. And then he said he contacted customer service, and within one email they were actually sending him a new one. Now, outside any particular build quality issues, one of the standout features for this particular headphone for me was that it's extremely comfortable, like really, really comfortable. I had no problem listening to this for literally hours on end, and it didn't bug me at all. The band is pretty big. It's not the most attractive pair on the head, and it does fit quite nicely around the ear. It is a round ear cup as opposed to my preferred oval shape, but the cups are big enough that, you know, medium to large ears probably shouldn't have a problem fitting in this. Speaking of where the ears fit in, the pads. Now these are, I believe, genuine leather. It feels like it and it kind of smells like it. They're leather on the outside, microfiber on the part that touches your head, and then on the inside it's perforated. And if you notice, there is a ever so slight angle to the leather, so there is a little bit of a forward tilt, kind of going along with the general shape of your ear. There are a few bits of plastic. I think originally this is a $900 headphone. I think right now you can find them for about $500 on Amazon, and Adorama I think is selling them for about $300, but they kind of go in and out of stock on there. Now for either $900 or $500, I'm not really that impressed with the build quality. Yeah, plastic arms. This piece is metal. It's actually quite a bit thicker than the M1060 metal, and it doesn't feel as springy. Also, it's slightly smaller than the M1060. And then the mechanism to raise this very comfortable strap has a very solid feeling to it. Now, these type of mechanisms, if you're adjusting it constantly, do tend to wear out a little bit, so be aware of that. Okay, now onto the power of this. Now, this is kind of a deceiving headphone for some people in terms of power. And the reason why is because it's only 45 ohms, which, if you're thinking, okay, well, high impedance headphones are generally hard to drive, this seems low impedance, right? 45 versus like something that's 600 ohms. That's true, but it also has a sensitivity of 90 decibels. So this isn't a very efficient headphone at all. In fact, it's quite inefficient. I actually had to borrow a Magni 3 to be able to power this thing for this review. And the only other headphone amplifier that I was able to test with these things well was going to be the Little Dot 3. So you're going to need quite a bit of power, at least a Magni 3. That's kind of the minimum recommendation for these, even though they're only 45 ohms. That sensitivity level can really stab you in the back sometimes. Okay, so what do these sound like? An overall description would be a flat, somewhat boring and veiled sound signature. Now, generally everything sounds good. This isn't a disappointing headphone in terms of how it sounds. It doesn't sound bad, nothing's offensive, nothing's overdone. It's very respectful. It does have like a very neutral sound signature, almost to a boring level, actually. But for whatever reason, there's something that's causing this to seem a little bit veiled for me. There just seems like there's like a film in between me and the sound, just something that's causing an ever so slight obstruction all over the range, to the bass, the mids, the treble, everything. But that being said, let me go ahead and put these down and we'll get into specifics here. Now, the high end is going to be kind of where this particular headphone shines the most. Some people do call it sibilant. I think it's a little bit on the brighter side of things, but I don't consider it sibilant. Although I think this pair is pretty well used, so it might be just with use, I'm not sure. Overall, I found the high range to be very accurate, very well represented. It had a lot of authority behind it. It had a lot of clarity despite that veiledness. Hi-hats, electric guitar, especially strings, were amazing and immaculately represented. Now, one of the genres of music that if you only listen to, this is going to be actually a really good headphone for you, is going to be classical. I feel like the last generation of like the really high-end audiophile headphones like the HD800, the HE560s, I feel like they were really oriented towards classical music, and this is definitely not an exception for that. Now, what I don't actually recommend for the highs and where they do get a little bit sibilant and a little too bright for my standards is going to be on tubes. The tubes also retracts a little bit of the bass, and it doesn't really have a lot to begin with. So if you're going to get this, unless you really, really love bright highs, I would stay away from tubes. I would stick with your solid states. Now, something that this headphone really, really lacks is a solid and detailed mid-range. This is actually the most disappointing part of the headphone sound. The mid-range just wasn't detailed. It didn't have any clarity or really any texture to it at all. It felt glazed over. It just didn't really have any texture behind it. There was nothing tangible about it. And now that actually covers a pretty solid portion of vocal ranges, and to me it was kind of disappointing. In volume, it dipped down. This didn't really seem V-shaped because the bass really doesn't kick that hard, but it did have an overall brighter sound signature with what I consider to be controlled highs on a solid state, a little bit uncontrolled on a tube. And then the mid-range seems to dip down quite a bit, and then it kind of levels out for the bass. Now for the bass, that's okay because sometimes you don't want your bass to be really, really in your face or really intense. And I think for what I would use these headphones for, that kind of fits where the bass should be. But speaking of bass, it's present, you can hear it, but same thing with the mid-range and even a little bit on the highs, there doesn't seem to be a lot of impact with anything. Something that was kind of surprising me because the planar magnetic that I'm most familiar with is the M1060s. That has a lot of impact everywhere. And then I've listened to now a couple different variations and mods of the Fostex T50RP, and that has a lot of impact too, especially with the right modifications. This headphone almost has no impact. Along with no impact, there's no overall vastness to the sound. And the song that I generally use, well, actually I almost always use to test like largeness of a sound signature, is Mountains by Hans Zimmer, the Interstellar soundtrack. That is an amazing song for testing dynamics and seeing how like absolutely gigantic certain headphones can sound. Now for sound, it's not all bad. Like I said, the highs are very good. The soundstage, it's fairly narrow. It's not like HD650 narrow or HD600 narrow. So the soundstage isn't super wide, but the soundstage that is there, the imaging within it is just pinpoint, and it is extremely accurate. Now, another thing that I like about the general sound signature is that nothing's really overemphasized. The highs are a little bit up there, but that's almost kind of what you want in this headphone in a weird way. Like, it's not my particular sound signature. It's not exactly what I go for. Now, if I were to buy a cooler or a brighter sound and I could escape that overall veil, I think this would be a really good option. Now, like I said before, strings on this headphone are absolutely magnificent, and they have a lot of detail. Orchestral music is simply fantastic. It doesn't sound huge, which is something that I would miss a little bit if I owned this headphone, but the detail within those ranges and within the string instruments and the violin and horns is just exceptional. That was kind of one of the weird things about the sound signature, was that the vocal ranges that are also covered by like the horns, because they're the same frequencies, I felt like there was a lot more detail within the horn and the string instruments than there was the vocals. So the mid-range not having a lot of texture behind it was kind of only vocals, which is really strange. And for me, the reason why I'm considering that a pretty big con is because I listen to a lot more vocal oriented music than I do orchestral music. My personal taste, so whatever your personal taste is may fit your needs. Okay, so let's talk about the conclusion of this headphone. Is it worth the money? Here's the thing, at $900, fuck no. I'm gonna say hard no on that one. $500, that's a tough sell. I guess if you really like the Hifiman sound signature that's offered by this headphone, I recommend you have tried it before, be okay with the build issues, and really, really, really like classical, then sure. Go for it. It's an absolutely gorgeous and comfortable headphone, and if it's what you need it for, then it's a great product, albeit a little bit expensive. If you can find it either used in good condition or, like I said, on Adorama for around 300 bucks, it's a pretty good option. I mean, it doesn't sound quite as dynamic or flavorful as an M1060, for example, which is around that same price range. But if you like something a little bit more flat, that Hifiman is gonna be kind of where you should put your money. Although nowadays there are a lot of options around $300. You're talking about HC600s, which albeit do offer a different sound signature, but that is just an option. There's actually a number of planars right now. I'm not sure if the 400 or 400i is better than this. I haven't tried that one, so I can't really give you advice on that one. But what I can do in the next Hifiman video that's coming out is actually going to be a comparison between the HE560 and the M1060. And that's going to be interesting because they're similar in certain areas, but really, really different in other ones. So that should be fun. Now, if you're not already subscribed, hit that button so you can stay tuned for that. Yeah, I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up. Thank you very much to the gentleman who sent this out. Thank you. It was a pleasant experience. The next review that I have coming out after this one is going to be the 660S, and that one I'm very, very excited for. And of course, like always, I'm going to leave links to this product, all my recommended products down below. Please use those links if you do want to purchase something. It helps me grow this channel and helps me buy products to review, and so on and so forth. All right, guys, that's going to finally wrap it up. My name is Josh. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.